Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Birthing the Giants Regional Cohort Program live stream. I'm here with Chris, Quinn, and Lewis Schiff. Thank you for joining us. In this brief 30 minutes, we want to talk about what the program is, who it's for, and why you might be interested in joining us. So welcome, Chris and Lewis. Great to see you guys.
Yeah, thanks for hosting us today.
Yeah, let's do a little bit of intro. So my name's Todd Chalfin. I'm the Regional Cohort Leader for the Raleigh-Durham area, kicking off the Birthing the Giants Regional Cohort. I've been a lifelong entrepreneur, 8 businesses over the last 25 years. And for the last 8 years, I've been working with leadership teams to help them grow, develop operational excellence, scale, and transformation in their business. Lewis and I met 3 years ago. Lewis is the chairman of Birthing the Giants. You want to tell a little bit about your background, Lewis?
Sure. Also an experienced entrepreneur. I built and sold 2 businesses to publicly traded companies. Also started more businesses than I can name that never made it to the finish line. But along the way, I started studying a subset of what's called, well, there's something called behavioral economics, which is a kind of a Nobel Prize winning area of study. And I'm in a little smaller part of that called behavioral entrepreneurship. So for years, I've been studying this group of people, entrepreneurs, who build and create things and trying to understand why they behave the way they behave. What's fun about that and interesting is sometimes we think we're the only ones who think this way, but actually a lot of us think alike. And so there's an opportunity, if you understand how everyone thinks, to marshal that energy in a kind of more productive way. So Birthing of Giants, which is about 10 years old now, has been the pursuit of helping entrepreneurs, marshal all their intensity and all their capability and capacity in a much more productive way to a bigger outcome.
And I saw Lewis talk about Birthing the Giants about 3 years ago, and I saw some really unique, innovative content that I felt could be helpful in a regional format. And that's why we're here talking today. So it's been innovation over the last couple of years. 2 years ago, we met Chris Quinn. Chris is an expert in the peer delivery format and bringing together CEOs, founders, leaders to collaborate on the next version of their business. And that's really what we're talking about. Chris, welcome. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I'm glad to be here. I'm really excited to be part of this program. It's I was a corporate guy after a stint in the military. I was president of a public biotech company and left that when I was 40 years old when my wife told me I was unemployable. And I began, that was my first business that I became a partner in. We did consulting around marketing, and then I spun out and created my own business about 25 years ago. And I've launched a couple businesses. And most recently, the last 7+ years, I've been working with CEOs, as you mentioned, Todd, in peer groups, and along with my wife. So really enjoyed that work. And I'm really excited about the potential this program has to provide a roadmap for entrepreneurs to, get the kind of support they need.
That's great. That's great. So let's talk a little bit about who this would be for. We talk about, my work in the lower middle market, the size of the organization, the stage of where they're at, really looking at that next version of their business, maybe even some things that they're investigating beyond talking to their leadership team, where they feel like they need a safe space to go and talk about those things, and then have some advisors that could come alongside them. Who is the Regional Cohort Program for in your minds? Lewis or Chris, I'll let you take that.
Yeah, let me jump in, and then I'd love to hear what Chris thinks as well. The first is you have this individual who's the CEO, owner of a company that they probably started at the proverbial kitchen table, and it's grown up quite a bit. So now it does millions and millions of revenue. They're doing something right. They're serving a market that needs them, but they've also gotten all that complexity that comes along with that, which is management and finance and strategy. And their days have been sort of taken over by the people around them. Because when you're that person, the boss of a company with, let's say, 25 or 100 people, you're on everybody's to-do list. So you have to find a way to manage that. And it can be very easy to slip into the sort of easy behavior of, oh, if they want something from me, I'll do it. Oh, if they want something from me, I'll do it. And then next thing you know, 12 hours have passed. Birthing of Giants, the whole concept and community is for people who want to step outside of that, what we call that tyranny of the urgent, put themselves in a place where they can be strategic around their peers and around a roadmap that leads them to a much, much bigger business, which is why Birthing of Giants calls it, basically it says, we answer this question: how big can your company be?
That's phenomenal. Yeah, it does get kind of lonely at the top as you grow. And sometimes you don't have access to the right people that can help guide you. I know a lot of owner founders who are getting letters of interest or intent put in front of them about, hey, I want to buy your business. Is this a good offer or not? What should I do? That's the type of situations that we're seeing and we're addressing.
Right. So that's not surprising, because there's just an epic amount of money that has decided that the lower middle market is one of the hot places to put it. And so that flood of money is really like a flood. In other words, it trickles into every little crevice and corner. And one of those crevices and corners is your great little business, wherever it is. And I don't mean little, it's probably doing millions of dollars in revenue. But in the old days, that money would have never cared about that company. It would have just been too small a company for it to look at. And because of a lot of innovations and a lot of money looking for a place to land, they're calling those CEOs. And so if on the one hand your life is that everyone around you wants a little piece of you because you're the boss, on the other hand you're getting these phone calls from people who say, you're really attractive, I'd like to talk to you. And that's the life of a business owner, and it can make their head spin. And they need to be in a room where we help sort that out. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting time, as you said, Lewis. A lot of the folks I've worked with, the business owners, when you think about what they get that call from private equity or from a fund and they get excited. But I think I always try to, and this is where the program comes in, talk to them about, you probably will do this once in your life, and you're talking to somebody who probably does it 7-8 times a month. And for them, it's a transaction and it's totally dispassionate. And for you, it's your identity, it's emotional. And so I really see this program as level setting, really helping the entrepreneur be on a more level playing field when they have those conversations, so they can optimize the value. Because for many of them, it will be life changing, and it might be one time in their life they get to do it. And what that excites me, because these people they work so much, or took so much risk to get where they are. They deserve to have the best opportunity to have the kind of exit, or if they choose to just grow the company and own it, have the best company to run, with some help.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit about the what. Some people who are listening may be familiar with Birthing of Giants and the Fellowship Week that happens twice a year in Princeton. How does this differ or complement? And what is unique about us taking this material regionally? What does a day in the life look like? Talk a little bit about that.
So, one of the things we're super proud of with Birthing of Giants is that this 5-day, Monday through Friday, how big can your company be? You come in on Monday, you understand the question, you think, and by Friday you're like rushing with a plan, and you see the vision, and 5 days have passed, and it's quite a big vision. Now, then we thought to ourselves, what's the support that's missing both before and after that? Before that, it's doing a lot of deep thinking about really where you want to go with your company, how serious you are about scaling the business, and how serious you are about taking on the strengths and the weaknesses of your company. And so to do that regionally in a room with 10 or 20 of your peers, I'm going to say gently, because the 5 days of fellowship is anything but gentle. So gently meaning, get to know the people around you, build trust, build rapport, be led by an experienced post-exit entrepreneur like you, Todd, who is going to show them that there is a roadmap ahead of them. And they may have gotten a call this week from some company offering them some maybe ridiculous amount of money, but really the path to success is slow things down, be strategic, okay, and follow a roadmap. And then, yes, in the middle of it, it's a 3-year program. So in the middle of it, they will come to Birthing of Giants Fellowship Week in Princeton with their peers, but they'll be so much better prepared for it. And then as they exit this roller coaster where they've built this phenomenal strategy for growth, they will then go back and get a chance to work back with you and their regional cohort to layer in the plan at a kind of a thoughtful pace.
Yes.
The fellowship program is great. It really works well. But yeah, for sure, this kind of community-based approach on the beginning and on the end will make it will exponentially improve its efficacy.
Yes. One of the things that I see is a benefit being the intentionality of the content. And Chris, maybe you can talk a little bit about the difference between this and other peer groups that people may or may not be involved in. But part of that is the content and the intentionality of what we're targeting versus more of a flavor of the month approach.
No, for sure. I mean, I think one of the big elements of legs of this value stool in this program is the curriculum. It is a scaffolded. Think about it as learning being scaffolded over each session, so that they build on the same. They're building on a strategy. It's not it's not tangential to their business. It's really core to their business. It's really focused on what Lewis has coined as a 1 year from today, which is a strategy that brings the strategy back into the year, the quarter. So every time they get together, they're working on that strategy. Everything they hear, they're filtering and applying to that strategy, because it's not something that's not core to their business. It's absolutely core. So every time they get together, they're working on it. That curriculum is robust. The faculty is outstanding. And so I think that's a big difference. I think another one is it's a defined time period. It's 3 years. It's 12 sessions. It's up and out. It is a, fast paced, but enough to iterate and apply and learn and, continue to do that, which I think is a big part of adult learning, is the opportunity to apply and iterate and get feedback and then build on that scaffold to the next level. So that's a big part. And I think the fellowship week can't be, underestimated either. That opportunity as a cohort to go there with maybe almost 2 years of application behind them, and to be there with other cohorts from around the country that have also gone down that journey to get feedback, another set of eyes, new perspective on your plan. That's really outstanding. It's a great opportunity. And then the thing Lewis mentioned, which I think is really key, is the leader is a post-exit entrepreneur. There are people that I would always, the analogy I use, if I went to Mount Everest, I'd want a Sherpa that this wasn't their first time climbing either. I want somebody to go, hey, they're excited because it's your first time. No, I want somebody who's got a few teeth missing, maybe lost a few digits to frostbite, and have experience. I mean, and I think that's one of the things that can't be underestimated, because post-exit entrepreneurs understand the left and right brain part of this thing. It's not just the rational part of this experience, also emotional. They can speak to that. It's a big part of their identity, as a founder and as an entrepreneur. So there's nobody better suited than a post-exit entrepreneur who's got a heart to give back, who can credibly speak into situations from experience, not from theory or not from empathy only, but from a lived experience. And I think that's a key component of this program.
And that's you, Todd. That's you. I want to hear about your take on how you captained this journey over 3 years, and what that was like for you.
Yeah, well, having worked with hundreds of leadership teams, I really saw the need for the owner, founder, leader to have a space and to go beyond some of the basic operational excellence and material that I was delivering. And this just fills that gap, right? So being able to get together with peers, talk about things, bounce ideas off one another, see things from a different perspective. I don't think I've realized until now the power of getting together with peers who are in a similar situation, similar transition as you, to really help one another. That's kind of like the third man, so to speak, right? There's another component when you add that peer component. Let's go a little deeper into actually what a day looks like. And Lewis, maybe you can pull up a day in the life so people can get an idea, our audience, of what a day at Birthing a Giants cohort would look like.
Yeah. So begin with the fact that your day as a business owner is incredibly valuable. So if we're going to take one day every quarter, there's a lot of science behind that. One is a day can get a lot done in a day to get you thinking, but then you have 3 months to kind of unpack it and process it. But if you were going all the time, if you're going every month, it's almost too much. It's almost like eating 6 meals a day. It's just too much to process. So we think the quarterly, the 90-day interval, there's a lot of other great evidence about how leadership teams work within 90-day groupings. So we're built on a 90-day concept. Now, each of those quarterly sessions, every time you come in for 1 day a quarter, the other way to look at it is you're probably being tactical for 89 days out of the quarter. And so it really makes sense to be strategic for 1 day a quarter. Okay. Unplug from the office. See if the place doesn't blow up while you're gone for 8 hours. And so for the day, we have 4 parts to the day, and they're equally distributed. The order of these is actually up to the discretion of the group, because the group has a lot of sort of self-determination about how they apply this. But the units are it's called experience and wisdom sharing. You always come into a session with real world stuff happening to you that you need to process. It could be a new opportunity, and it could be a problem, a challenge that you're dealing with. And think about it. You're in a room full of 15 or 20 experienced business owners and a regional cohort leader who's been there and done that. So you should get a chance to just say, hey, here's what's going on in my business. I need some help, some wisdom, some experience sharing. And everyone has that coming in. So you even just learn a lot from everyone else's experiences that are going on in their lives. The second part of the day would be a deep dive with a special speaker. So we have this amazing faculty with folks who have built wildly fascinating companies, exited. One of our faculty members is one of Warren Buffett's former CFOs, people who can accelerate your process a lot. And so you'll have one of them coming in every one of those days for every one of your quarterly sessions. Then the last 2 parts, the 3-year growth roadmap and the OYFT, which is our acronym for 1 year from today, and strategy stacking. So the 3-year growth roadmap is a 3-year curriculum that basically tells you how to build a bigger, better company, how to understand the ecosystem you work in, call that the economy, call that the capital markets, all of that. And then third and last, how to be the best leader you can be. And that's a 3-year process that is very backed by research and experience. And really pretty much, as we all know, most of us who get to run a company didn't go to entrepreneur school at any point. So, and even if you might have your MBA, that's a really different education than you need to run a company. So this 3-year growth roadmap is designed to turn you, I would call it an MBA for entrepreneurs, I think would be a fair way to put it. 1 year from today in strategy stacking, that's basically the accountability piece. That's when you plot out 12 months worth of growth and you're held accountable to it. And we have a process that Warren Buffett himself used. We call it the Buffett benchmark, which is how do you look back on what you did and can you see what moved the needle in the value of your company? And then how do you then plot forward using the lessons learned from what you did? So you're constantly looking backwards and looking forwards and being held accountable by your peers and by your regional cohort leader to the present. And I would add that all of this is powered by an artificial intelligence platform that basically not only makes the learning faster, but allows you to take it home with you. So you don't have to always wait for that quarterly session before you can access all that wisdom.
Yeah, I love the AI innovation that you and the team have focused on. And I really think that is a transformation in how peer groups and coaching happen in our culture. So kudos. I think that's a key point.
Yeah, I mean, any group of a dozen or so smart people are going to create a ton of intelligence. And if you have, as these regional cohorts are all over the country, you'll have even more intelligence. And so to process and to access that wisdom sort of on demand is something that wasn't possible a year ago.
Kind of the hallmarks I see are that it's immersive for that day. It's comprehensive, meaning we're not just focused on one narrow aspect, but there's a variety of things. And then it's very intentional, as I mentioned earlier. What about the actual content that we'll be diving into? Talk a little bit about the 6 steps and the blueprint that Birthing of Giants has to build a bigger business.
Yeah, so everyone in the room is going to be the owner of a business that's got some level of scale. I would say if there's any jeopardy or challenges to that scale, it's going to be, can it scale beyond where it is? And so we see a lot of companies that are built on entrepreneurial personas that hit a ceiling. So a lot of what we want to do here is figure out what's it take to get past that ceiling. We call this the 6 steps to a bigger business. And what it really drills down into is you've built a value proposition, a way you deliver value to your clients. Probably in order to scale, we're going to have to rethink our value proposition to get to a higher level of scale. So, we have 6 steps to this. The first is called PREP, which stands for profits, revenues, and exit prices. And that is the obsession of every business owner. How do I get more profit, revenue? How do I make my company more valuable? And so we start by essentially assessing what you think you're doing right and what you might be doing wrong right now. That's just a relatively short-term process that, in fact, we invite anyone that is interested in the Regional Cohort program to just kick the tires on the prep process just to get started. Then as you move along these 6 steps, the second step is called 3 legs of the stool, which is every business is really a function of these 3 legs: labor, technology, and cash. And you'd be surprised, but if you alter one or more of those legs to be more beneficial, you can unleash and unlock scale. And that's kind of the secret that's misunderstood. Now, how do you unlock labor, technology, and cash? That's the next step. That's called the 4 levers. And the 4 levers that we all have to alter the trajectory of our company to a greater scale is going to be money, model, market, and management. So these are different aspects of your company where all the hidden growth is. So if we apply these 4 legs to these 4 levers to those 3 legs, that's where you see explosive growth. And I'll just share, in our program, explosive growth could be anything from doubling revenues, quadrupling profits, to 10xing everything. And I know that that's an easily said thing, except that we do it too often for it to be just kind of an offhand remark. And so this comes out of that.
While we're here, talk a little bit about capital markets, because I think sometimes that's an enigma to the owner-founder. Can you demystify that a bit? What does that mean or look at?
Yeah, so imagine a person who's built a really great company, knows every nook and cranny of that company, but as Chris said earlier, all of a sudden they're maybe engaged in a capital markets transaction. So that's private equity. That's a bigger company that wants to buy you, a competitor that wants to buy you. It could even be just borrowing money from the bank down the street. I mean, they're all accessing the capital markets in one way. And all of a sudden, your counterpart becomes this, I'm going to be cute about it here, but a bean counter, a professional business assessor, and you are this passionate entrepreneur, and they're these sort of overeducated, financial engineers. And by the way, they're really smart, and what they know and think about your company is really helpful. And they come looking at your company, and as Chris said earlier, you are outmatched because their approach is just different than yours, but also how often they do this versus how often you'll do it, completely outmatched. So anyone listening to this who says, that's so timely, they're talking about the capital markets. I just got an offer for $50 million, and wow, that's so interesting. No, there's nothing surprising about any of this. You're all getting calls, and as soon as those calls go from a random call to an engaged conversation, you are in I don't want to be too cynical, but you're in a game. You're being played. I don't mean that there's not a good deal to be had out there. I just mean they know what they're doing emotionally, strategically, tactically to wind you up. And so the question is, if you're going to have these capital markets in your life, how do you build your team around you to be ready for that level of game? And if you don't want to sell, which is totally fine, and in the Birthing a Giants program, you can be a person who never wants to sell, but you have to learn about the capital markets anyway, because they're buying your competitors, they're buying your vendors, and they're buying your clients. So this education is helpful no matter what you think you're doing.
And they could help you on the flip side, buy and make acquisitions if you want to grow your business through acquisitions. So
one of the most fun things to see is when a seller becomes a buyer, and you can be a buyer and a seller all at the same time.
Yeah, that's great. What are the last 3 steps?
So model, market, and management. So model is that basically the great canvas for the entrepreneur is their financial model. We sometimes make the comparison of Blockbuster to Netflix. They both do the same thing. That they just do. Well, Blockbuster doesn't do it anymore, but they both came at the same thing, but they came at it wildly differently. We teach extensively the ways you can alter your financial model where a dollar passing through from the beginning to the end is worth so much more at the end. And sometimes small changes yield really, really big results. This is one of those challenges, a business owner who has his or her head down and is just, rocking and rolling their company. Well, financial models take a little bit of time, a little bit of space, and a little bit of, collaboration to say, wait a second, if I charge this way, it will make the value of my company 10 times more. Why didn't anybody tell me that? That's the moments that you have. Market is basically revenue transformation, meaning the ways we take in revenue. Obviously, sales is part of that. Acquisitions can be a part of that. What products we decide to sell, what clients we decide to work with, what market we carve out for us to have a specialty in. Again, an under-leveraged or under-examined part of people's businesses. And then last, something that I know you're an expert in, Todd, is management, is who are those half a dozen people who are going to help you get there? The way you attract them, the way you structure those half a dozen, the way you make them accountable could mean everything between, pushing that boulder uphill and never getting there, or being able to actually call in from the beach and see how things are going. It makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the next box there?
Yeah. So then we get into 1 year from today, which, as Chris mentioned earlier, that's the 12-month framing of everything we do to hold people accountable. So 12 months is sort of the intersection between strategy and tactic, meaning you've got to be strategic if you're thinking 12 months out. We don't think 3 years out. We don't think 10 years out. That's a bit far for the fast-changing world we live in. But you got to think strategically for 1 year, but you got to dial in the tactics to get there. And you have to do that within the next 90 days. So it's sort of the intersection. And we're pretty good. The whole cohort will be very good at holding each other accountable. And by the way, the AI platform really comes into being here, which is helping you design your 1 year from today, helping you attract the right resources and information, and then helping you hold yourself accountable to it.
Yeah.
And then that leads to strategy stacking, which is essentially the 1 year from today, which is clearly 12 months forward looking, and the Buffett benchmark, which is looking backwards. And we have a methodology that allows you to figure out what has worked and why, and therefore what should I be doing going forward. And it's kind of a breakthrough tech to put the two together. And it allows, it's almost like having a fancy consulting firm watching your company 24/7 the way we do it.
Yeah.
So you can always see you can always have this radar about what you should be doing more of and where the goal is in the whole plan.
So there is a way to validate the choices that you've made in the past and see if they were the right ones and make tweaks and changes.
Yeah. And by the way, this goes a bit farther into the future, but if you are ever actually going to sell your company, if you come in with what you know now today in the history of your company versus coming in with a well-defined timeline of what you did that worked and what you're doing that's going to work, you will see a turn of your multiple. You will increase the value of your company just because you can explain how you do what you do and how you did what you did. That's hard to come by, and you're naturally and organically building that story through these tools.
That's phenomenal. What about the final box?
So the final one is outcomes, and this is the end, but it should be the beginning, and it is in some ways the beginning because, if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. Sort of a Yogi Berraism. So we have 3 outcomes that we have generally seen after hundreds of companies going through these 6 steps. The first is that they want to purposely stay small, and I do not at all mean in revenues. I just mean in complexity. They don't want to play the capital markets game. If somebody says, do you have a complicated profit sharing plan or a complicated exit strategy? They say, no, I'm a profit-oriented company. If I make a lot of money this year, my life is good. And that's a small giant. And so if you want to be that kind of company, these 6 steps apply very, very well. If you want to be a big giant, which is you want to play what I'll call the capital markets game, you want to invite that private equity into your company, you want to acquire other companies, that's big giant. And these same 6 steps will apply, but ever so slightly differently. And the last one is a giant exit, which is you've identified that a few years from now, you want to be out. And every decision you make is going to be geared towards that out date backwards. And so you can see folks in our community saying, 5 years from now, I want to exit. And we know we can't run two parallel companies, and that would require alternative universes. But we know that companies that go through our program are going to exit for a much bigger number than if they don't. I have, and so these are the people who go through our program who have these great results, and they love it. And that's because they were thoughtful about their outcome. And probably there's nobody around you right now saying, what's the outcome you seek? How do we design a strategy backwards from there?
I know.
Sorry.
Well, I know we at Birthing the Giants have the distinction of having more companies that have gone through the program on the Inc. 500 list than any other training and development program out there. Is that?
That's right. And it's by revenue, which is always, the most fun.
Yeah.
So growth, scale.
Yeah.
Every year, about 1% of that list is companies from our school. So that's fun. That's I guess, a proof is in the pudding. The other proof would be all the companies that sell for big dollars.
Yes. Well, hopefully that gave everyone an overview of what the Birthing of Giants cohort is all about, what a day in the life looks like, some of the content. We'll certainly go deeper at our information session. So if you're asking, how do I learn more? We have an information session coming up on Thursday, September 23rd from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. at the Cap Trust headquarters in Raleigh, North Carolina. Look forward to seeing you there. I believe we have a guest speaker as well, Chris, who's going to be attending.
Yeah, so Fielding Miller, who's actually a graduate he's the CEO of Cap Trust, co-founder of Cap Trust, and a graduate of Birthing the Giants, is going to be kicking it off and hosting the event. So we're really excited about that.
That's phenomenal. That's awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing anyone there who'd like to learn more. We're here to help, and we want to provide this to you so that you can grow your business. You deserve to be a giant.
I love that.
Seeing you there. Yes. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Lewis. Great to be with you both.
Thanks, Todd. Great job.